In today's video, I'm going to play Pokemon Platinum using only Pachirisu. This is an electric type run. I think it's going to be really fun. Most notably, my rival is starting with Turtwig, which is going to be a major problem later on. Obviously, it is a grass ground type when it fully evolves. Right now, though, it's just a mono grass type, so I don't have problems in this first battle. Now that I've broken the ice and we've got into this solo challenge, I want to talk about the reason that I am so excited to play Generation 4 and 5 on this channel this year. Well, one of the reasons. I'm also really excited just to be playing Pokemon Black because so far those games have been really enjoyable in solo challenges. The other reason is that Snowy has been doing so much development work behind the scenes and has made a completely new version of Super Shocky. Up until this point, Super Shocky has been the emulator of choice for me in Generation 1 and 2, but it's only supported Game Boy and Game Boy Color games. All of that has changed now though because Super Shocky 2 supports Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advanced, and Nintendo DS games. Now, Snowy is a complete wizard when it comes to coding, and the level of optimization that goes into a tool like this is kind of absurd. I personally believe this is the best emulator that's available, at least for my purposes. One of the major features that it had that no other emulator had was a really robust replay system. This allows me to collect all of my gameplay and then scrub through it very efficiently after I complete a playthrough. This facilitates really quick testing when I'm trying to optimize the Pokemon, as you've seen on my streams. With the help of Dagron, I was able to implement a similar replay system into Generation 3 on BizHawk. However, we really never got a solution working for Generation 4. And the reason was pretty simple. Whenever I collect a replay in one of these games, the file size would bloat to like 25 to 40 gigabytes. And then as soon as I tried to load it, BizHawk would freeze up, my computer would slow down for 15 minutes, and eventually the program would just crash. But all of this has been solved now because Super Shocky 2 has replays for every single platform. It's also worth noting that the file sizes here are so much better. An entire run in Generation 4 is roughly 2.5 gigabytes. That is a 10 to 15x reduction in data size. Another thing that I've complained about with Nintendo DS games is the fact that the emulators don't run them particularly fast, even on modern hardware. You can get exceptional frame rates if you're using something called a just-in-time recompiler. However, this destroys the deterministic nature of the game, which doesn't allow me to collect replays. I was collecting replays in BizHawk, but they're a much more primitive format that doesn't allow me to skip to any point during the run. And for that reason, I have resisted doing second playthroughs in these games because I know that I just can't test well enough. But all of these constraints have been eliminated. Also, Super Shocky 2 runs with incredible frame rates even though I'm not enabling the just-in-time recompiler. Although it is present in the software just in case you want to squeeze out a few more frames should your system not have an amazing CPU. I actually upgraded my CPU this year just to get better frame rates in these games, and I am happy to report that I can run Generation 4 and Generation 5 at almost a stable 240 frame rate the entire time. The only areas I noticed that it dips under 240 frames is inside of the distortion world, and then in some cinematics that are played in Pokemon Black. Previously, the game was playing back at somewhere between 140 and 280 frames per second, which is roughly 3 times speed. It would go up to 240 every time I go into a battle and then drop back down for the overworld. So it's not exactly 3 times speed. You can maybe think about it like 3.5 times speed, but it feels much slower than the buttery smooth 4 times speed that I'm now able to play on. And that's the reason I'm so excited to play these games this year. They just feel so much better. And little things like this go a long way when you're playing hours of a game. Anyway, thank you to Snowy for making this incredible technology possible. If you want to check it out yourself, go to my Discord link in the description. Okay, so now let's talk about Pachirisu. For base stats, this is not good. 60 HP, 95 speed, 45 attack and special attack, 70 defense, and 90 special defense. Using a mono electric type in solo challenges is never fun, and with 45 attack and special attack, I expect this to be very rough, especially in a game that has essentially 3 ground type specialists, Roark, Byron, and Bertha, but we're going to talk about them in a little bit. Pachirisu has a medium fast growth rate. I gave it pickup as an ability. The only other choice was runaway, which is not very good. Its move pool is fairly limited, although there is some nice coverage here, but not through level up. It starts with Growl, Bide, and Quick Attack. Not great for the early game. Then it gets Charm at 9, Spark at 13, Endure at 17, and Swift at 21. Not a lot of good options for rock types. Sweet Kiss at 25, Discharge at 29, Super Fang at 33, and Last Resort at 37. Through TM and HM, it gets a surprising amount of coverage for an electric type. Iron Tail, Dig, Grass Knot, and U-Turn are the 4 moves that stand out to me. Of course, we learn electric moves and normal moves, which is to be expected with any electric type. Since it's the start of the year for Pokemon Platinum, I want to address 2 other things. The first one is my nature, which is hardy, and the second one is the fact that Hidden Power is banned in this run. Right now, I am completing what I consider to be my first attempt playthrough series of Pokemon Platinum. Just to spell it out for everyone, I am trying to go through all of the new Pokemon introduced in Generation 4 and playing runs featuring evolution with them. I'm also playing all of the single stage Pokemon like legendaries as well as Pachirisu, so those runs won't feature evolution and they give me a nice bridging point so that I have some data when I start doing playthroughs with fully evolved Pokemon, first stage Pokemon, and middle evolutions. As things stand right now, I'm pretty far into this series. I've been showing a number out of 70 in my tier list up until now, but I'm going to revise this. I didn't include some evolutionary lines like Snorlax because it has a baby introduced in Generation 4. I wasn't sure if I wanted to play Snorlax as a part of this series, but I have decided that I do want to complete those runs. So that brings the total of runs in this first series up to 75. Machamp is just a bonus, by the way, because I caught a shiny when I was completing my Heatran run earlier on into this series. I think if I really put my mind to it and record a lot of voiceover, I just might be able to complete this Pokemon Platinum series this year. No promises, but right now that is my intention. So let's see how much time Pachirisu is going to steal away from other runs. There's no way that this playthrough is going to be easy, right? It's an electric type. Roark is first. I should be doing all of the training I possibly can in the early game. Fighting everyone around Jubilife City only brings Pachirisu up to level 9. Then I take on the rival, and this doesn't go well. I have my attack lowered 3 times by the Starly, and then Turtwig comes in, which has Withdraw. It can set up its defenses so that they're sky high. I do almost no damage per turn, and slowly but surely, the Turtwig brings Pachirisu down to red health. Luckily, I had Bide, and I was able to use this move to deal more damage to the Turtwig along the way. Because of this, I am able to knock it out just before Pachirisu goes down. I continue fighting everyone else in the early game. This gets Pachirisu Spark at level 13. It will be useful against Roark's Cranidos, which is a mono rock type, but his Geodude and his Onix I need a different answer for. It could come in the form of Bide, but unlike in Generation 1, this move isn't completely janky and there's no glitch that I can abuse here to deal extra damage. By the way, there are some weird facts about this move in Generation 4. This is the first time that it has increased priority. This is for the entire duration, so it's always going to be moving first, accumulating damage. It also bypasses accuracy checks again, just like in Generation 1. This wasn't the case in Generation 2 and 3. And just like in Generation 1, it can once again hit Ghost-type Pokemon. Don't worry, Game Freak thought this was too strong, and then they removed it once again in Generation 5. Unfortunately, fun facts are not in fact super effective against Roark. I could potentially use Charm with Quick Attack to win, but this is going to be really slow, and I'm not even sure that it's going to be successful. Quick Attack will deal so little damage to both the Geodude and the Onix. However, if this strategy isn't going to work, then what are my options? Well, training to level 21 and getting Swift so that I have a special move, which will at least do more damage to the Geodude and the Onix since their special defense stats are completely awful. You can see here that I'm fighting youngster Jonathan, who has a level 11 Geodude, just to try out how Bide is going to work here, experiment with Charm, those kind of things. This fight does not go well for Pachirisu. It wins on orange health, and that's only when the enemy has one rock-type Pokemon. In retrospect, I think fighting Roark right now was a mistake, but I decided to go for it, skipping the other trainer in the gym. Geodude's Rock Throw does a good amount of damage to Pachirisu, and then using Bide, I'm able to pay back quite a bit. This does more than half to Geodude, so I can two-shot. The unfortunate thing is I'm taking damage in the process. So while I will be able to black out and gain experience from a battle like this, I'm still not making much progress towards my goal. I also didn't choose to black out here because I have a bunch of HM users in my party, and I'll just waste extra time if I try to let them faint. A quick reset allows me to battle the other trainer inside of the gym, and this fight's so sketchy. He has a Geodude Geodude and an Onix, so he's a good test to see how Roark's gonna go, and I make it through here, but just by the skin of Pachirisu's tiny little tooth. I head back to the Pokemon Center to deposit my HM users because I think I'm gonna have to black out to Roark again, but not right away. First, I'm gonna go to the wild. I train here to level 15, and then I come back to Roark over the damage rounding threshold. This is not enough. While I can defeat the Geodude, the Onix continues to get me. I tried 2 times in total. The second time, the Geodude knocked me out. I was going for the Charm Quick Attack strategy. This does not buy Pachirisu enough time. So I guess I'm heading back to fighting wild Pokemon north of the city. This is fairly slow because sometimes Geodudes show up, which take time to knock out using Quick Attack. I'm not entirely sure if just running away from these encounters and looking for other Pokemon like Ponyta and Machop would be more favorable. At the next damage rounding threshold, level 18, I try once again to defeat Roark. This goes I guess better? I'm able to bring the Onix down to low-ish health, but then Roark uses a potion and completely destroys any hope of winning. I tried one more time, but no, this won't work, so back to fighting wild Pokemon. I level up all the way to 21, learn Swift, and then use the special move to knock out Roark's Geodude in 2 hits. It's probably going to take 3 turns to knock out the Onix, and that is the damage range, but unfortunately because of the potion, it takes 5 turns. There might be the ability to speed this up a little bit using Bide, but I'm not entirely sure. Swift is fairly consistent. I knock out his second Pokemon, move on to the Cranidos, which surprisingly doesn't have very good defense, and I can finally use Spark here. It knocks out his ace in 2 hits, and I earn myself the first badge. That's a first split of 28 minutes and 51 seconds. As expected, this electric type run is off to an incredibly slow start. Inside Oreburgh Gate, I pick up my last HM user, Psyduck. This has a guaranteed catch rate, by the way. I have updated this in all of my games for this year. I personally am just enjoying playing with this rule set a little bit more than my previous rule set, which required me to catch HM users fair and square. Alright, up next is Commander Mars. With Pachirisu using Spark, I can one-shot the Zubat, avoiding Toxic. This allows me to hold an Oranberry for the Purugly to gain back a little bit of health. While her ace does get a critical hit, it's not enough. Pachirisu makes it through here on green health. Okay, I'm going to criticize my play in the next section of the game. There are a bunch of trainers on the way north towards Eterna Forest. I don't fight any of them. I'm not sure why I decided to skip these people. Since Gardenia is the next gym leader, and I have a type disadvantage against her. Well, kind of. She resists my attacks, at least my electric attacks. By this point, I've taught Return. I can fight the other Pachirisu inside of the forest with decent success. I did lose some health here, but luckily I wasn't paralyzed. I think it's worth the reminder that electric types prior to Generation 6 are not immune to this status condition, as you can see here inside of the gym. During these battles where I get paralyzed multiple times, I level up to 25, and here I can teach Pachirisu Sweet Kiss. I decided to go for it in the place of Bide, since I don't think that move is going to be particularly useful against Gardenia, but Confusion might be very helpful against her. Turtwig is first. It loves to go for Reflect, and I am not going to be able to one-shot with any of my moves. Even a first turn Return before the Reflect goes up does less than half. After the defense is set up, Return is doing even less. I use Swift. I get a critical hit here, knocking her lead out in 3 turns. But then the Cherrim comes in and kind of ruins my day. It sets up with Leech Seed. I'm not doing very much damage. It can do a ton with Magical Leaf. It survives my last Return on red health, uses Magical Leaf, and that's it for Pachirisu. I reset once, fought her again, had basically the same result as the first time, so I chose to black out here, take a little bit of experience from the Turtwig, and then go and do training elsewhere. East of the city, there's a bunch of trainers, as well as this patch of grass. I spend my time here grinding all the way up to level 28 before coming back to the gym. This time I approached the fight with a slightly different strategy. Sweet Kiss on turn 1. I was hoping this would prevent Reflect, but it doesn't. Still, I do get lucky with a critical hit one-shotting the Turtwig. Cherrim's next. Its Magical Leafs are doing a lot of damage, and this time, with Sweet Kiss, I'm able to knock it out. However, I move on to the Roserade in a terrible position, with only 3 hit points remaining. Return does less than half, Reflect has faded by this point, Roserade goes for Grass Knot, and Pachirisu goes down. By the way, there's a small error here. My overlay didn't count this as a blackout, which it was. You can see that in the next battle, where the timer has progressed, but the blackout counter is still at 5. It is way easier for me to change this at the very end of the the run, so that's what I'm gonna do. But what is one blackout during an electric type run? I'm sure there are gonna be many more from here. This time around, I lose to the Cherub, not even making it to the Roserade. I wasn't confident about my chances of making it back to her ace. However, I can use Sweet Kiss, and eventually I am gonna luck through this battle. If I don't win, I'll just take the blackout and whatever experience I earned along the way. I don't think it makes sense when there's a chance of winning with Confusion to grind against wild Pokemon in this section of the run. One reason to do that might be to grind to level 29 to get Discharge, but I think just fighting Gardenia over and over with Sweet Kiss is the better play. And in this case, it works out for me. I make it to the Roserade for a second time. Here I have decent health. Sweet Kiss right away causes it to hit itself. Return brings it under 50%, so it consumes its Citrus Berry. Then it starts going for Paralysis, and because of that, I finally have the opening I need to knock it out. Defeating her final Pokemon brings Pachirisu up to level 29, where I teach it Discharge in the place of Sweet Kiss. This move has lower power than Thunderbolt, but it hits all Pokemon in double battles, which I think is the reason why its power is nerfed. Also, it has a 30% chance of paralyzing the target. It is still an upgrade for Pachirisu though over Spark. Using it, I can 3-shot Jupiter's Skuntank even when it consumes its Citrus Berry, so this battle was extremely easy. Inside the old chateau, I pick up the rare candy. I'm going to be grabbing every single one of these today with Pachirisu. Again, electric type. This run I can only assume is going to require an incredibly high level. I grab the substitute TM, explore Wayward Cave, picking up another rare candy, even though this one costs a lot of time. I should also mention here another way that I've improved at this game starting this year. I've had so many problems against Cyrus and his Houndoom specifically, which likes to go for Will-O-Wisp on turn 1. I can pick up a Rostberry here to counter that strategy, and it really only takes about 10 extra seconds to grab it. In Hearthome City, I pick up the Shell Bell, which is going to see a lot of play during this run later on. But for now, I go into the fight with Fantina using no held item. There isn't really something good available for Pachirisu right now, and I'm not too worried about this fight. You can see that because I haven't even taught Substitute, which is typically the best move against her. Duskull is first with Discharge. I'm able to 2-shot. It just goes for Shadow Sneak, dealing pathetic damage, and then goes down. Pachirisu hits level 31, Haunter comes out, I paralyze with Discharge, and even though it crit me, I still have green health for the Mismagius. Discharge does roughly 1/3. Mismagius with Shadow Ball does enough to bring me to orange health, but my second Discharge paralyzes. Pachirisu survives the follow-up Shadow Ball. Mismagius is paralyzed. Fantina tries to heal, giving me 2 more attacks, and that's enough for me to win. This could have been easier with Substitute, but teaching the move would have wasted more time in a case like this where I get lucky and win without it. But the rival is next, and this battle is typically more difficult than the one against Fantina. I can one-shot the Staravia at the beginning of the battle. Well, if I went for Discharge, instead I chose Spark, which makes no sense. Staravia has Intimidate, so my attack stat is ruined. I then miss my follow-up Spark because it sets up double team. It follows with Endeavor, bringing Pachirisu down to 14 hit points. It goes for Quick Attack, I miss again, and the second Quick Attack gets me. This was really bad play. Instead, Discharge turn 1, one-shot the Staravia, as well as the Buizel, which follows. Grotle is third, and Return does almost nothing. Swift is a bit better because its special defense is lower, so I start using that. Razor Leaf is doing quite a bit of damage. I'm lucky that it's not getting critical hits, and I'm also really lucky that I get a critical hit. This allows Pachirisu to knock out the Grotle in 1 less turn, and because of that, I'm pretty sure I win. Ponyta follows. It gets a critical hit after surviving Discharge, and I pull through with red health. 1 more Razor Leaf would have finished me. Okay, Route 215. Here is Ruin Maniac Calvin, the first moment in a playthrough where we get to see Bronzor, one of my least favorite Pokemon to face in these solo challenges. I swear every time one of these Pokemon shows up, I get a little bit frustrated. Steel Psychic is so good defensively, especially when paired with Levitate. Today though, I'm running an electric type, and this should be a typing that thrives against the Bronzor here. It can deal neutral damage to them with its powerful electric attacks. The problem is that Pachirisu has no offensive stats, so I still have to knock out this Pokemon in what looked like it was going to be 3 hits. Luckily, I roll better damage, or the HP bar was just an approximation, and I am able to 2-shot here. So that's not so bad for a Bronzor. At this point in the run, the only reason to pick up Shockwave is to avoid accuracy checks on the foggy route. I don't think that this TM is going to have any other use than this. I grabbed it just for safety here, but in retrospect, I think I should have skipped this item to save time. time. Okay, Gligar. This Pokemon is frustrating to go up against. By the way, some people have commented asking if this is a shiny Gligar. It is not. For whatever reason, in Generation 4, Gligar is colored the same color as Gliscor, which personally I really like. I'm just a bit confused. Wouldn't it have been more easy for Ken Sugimori to just color Gliscor the same color as Gligar, or update the official art for Gligar? I don't know what's going on. Anyways, now we have a weird evolutionary line that starts as a pink Pokemon and then becomes a kind of purple Pokemon when it evolves. I don't particularly like the trend of Pokemon changing colors significantly when they evolve, like Rhydon into Rhyperior. I think that's the Pokemon that's the best example of a design downgrade when you fully evolve. By the way, I'm really excited to play Gliscor. I think that it has a chance of redeeming itself for Gligar's incompetence in Generation 2, at least here in Pokemon Platinum. We will talk about Gligar and Gliscor in Pokemon Heart Gold later. South of Veilstone City, I head into the Ruined Maniac Cave to pick up the TM for Dig. This is going to be very helpful against Maylene, who is coming up next. I teach it in the place of Super Fang, which I did have on my set at this point in the run. Now, let's take on the Fighting type specialist. Meditite is first, and after surviving a discharge, it tries to speed control with Rock Tomb, but it just misses, doing nothing. Next, she sends in Lucario, and I should have been able to two-shot with Dig, except the Lucario chooses Drain Punch on turn 1, healing itself slightly, surviving my second attack. This gives it another chance to move, and it goes for Force Palm, which paralyzes. Then Pachirisu is slower than Machoke, and because of this, I fail. The second fight is worse than the first. This time, Meditite does damage. I have my speed lowered, so now Lucario is faster. By the way, I am aware that the outspeeds and stuff on the right-hand side of the screen are not updating correctly in Generation 4. There's a bunch of small bugs that I'm trying to work out in the Generation 4 overlay right now. Every year in January, I'm trying to make as many improvements behind the scenes as is possible, and sometimes things break like this. After losing again, I decided that it's time to use rare candies. There are 20 of these available in Pokemon Platinum, so even with an electric type, using them now isn't the worst choice. I have a total of 6, so I can bring Pachirisu from 35 up to 41. I also give it the Shell Bell before I fight Maylene again. At the higher level, I am not able to one-shot the Meditite. It survives on a tiny amount of health. Pretty frustrating. Next is Lucario. I'm gaining back health here and doing much more damage, so even with Drain Punch, it wouldn't have survived 2 hits. I'm not paralyzed. As a result, I outspeed Machoke, and I can two-shot with Discharge. Now, I should have used this move during double battles like this to just knock out all of the Pokemon on the field. I didn't. I'm so silly, wasting extra time here, one-shotting all of the Pokemon using Spark. Well, actually, not one-shotting some of the Pokemon because Spark does less damage, so I have to two-shot the final Stunky. This is pretty embarrassing. Why am I doing voiceover for this? I should just cut this section from the video and hide my shame. That's actually a joke. I like to be as transparent as possible on this channel, so I don't try to hide my mistakes from you. And that's the point of these first attempt series. I'm just feeling the game out, trying to get a sense for how is best to play with these Pokemon. While I can never remove mistakes entirely, at least with this experience going into second runs with these Pokemon, it gives a chance for me to have some character development by the end of the series when hopefully I'll be playing much better. And if not, at least we get some silly moments that we can meme about. Also, sometimes when I make mistakes, absolute miracles happen, and you should keep your eye out for those because they're always fun moments. In the Great Marsh, rare candy, next to Pastoria City, another rare candy. Then the rival's awful. He has Grotle, it knows Withdraw, it can use this move, but if it just spams Razor Leaf, Pachirisu has too little health to survive the Buizel's quick attack. In the second fight, he just spams Withdraw too many times, and because of this, I make it through. So, Crasher Wake is next. Does he deserve an intro? Yeah, he deserves an intro. He's usually the most difficult gym leader in Pokemon Platinum. I assume, though, that Pachirisu isn't going to have any problems here. Discharge, one-hit Gyarados. Quagsire's next. Oh no, I didn't teach Grass Knot. It has Mud Shot. This does a lot of damage and lowers my speed. Still, the Quagsire is pretty slow, but I have to hit it with physical moves, and Gyarados had Intimidate, so I'm not doing very much damage, and because of that I lose to Mud Shot. The solution here is very simple. Teach Grass Knot. I put this in the place of Spark, and then I completely destroy Wake, as was supposed to be the case. One-shot Gyarados, one-shot Quagsire, and one-shot Floatzel. It's worth talking about Grass Knot here because Byron is coming up very soon. This move has its base power determined by the weight of the target. It ranges from 20 all the way up to 120. This move is going to be helpful for neutral damage against Pokemon like Steelix, which otherwise Pachirisu wouldn't have a good move to counter. better. In this case, we have two advantages. Grass Knot deals special damage, pairing up well against Steelix's lower special defense stat, and number 2, Steelix weighs 1,631 pounds, maxing out Grass Knot's power. Sometimes Cyrus 1 is difficult. That isn't the case here. Once his Sneasel is finished off, I can knock out both of his flying Pokemon in one hit with Discharge. By the way, if you're really detail-oriented, you'll see another glitch with my software here. When the status condition is applied to the enemy Pokemon, it places the label for it in the wrong place in the enemy's area. It also pops down to the Golbat once the Sneasel gets knocked out. Just more bugs for me to fix. With Surf, I can now go behind the Valley Windworks and pick up the Thunderbolt TM. I also head over to the Floroma Meadow. There are 3 useful items here. 1 PP up, the Miracle Seed, which I am going to grab since I'm using Grass Knot, as well as 1 additional rare candy. Okay, so the rival battles up until now in the playthrough have been kind of difficult. Grotle has taken quite a bit of effort and sometimes luck for my Pachirisu to knock out. On the battle against him on the bridge, for the first time he has evolved his starter into Torterra. I one-shot the Staraptor that's first, then he sends in the Rapidash, which I find very strange. He follows it with Heracross. I make it by the fighting type, although with very low health. I have 2 hit points left. He holds back the Floatzel since it's weak to my electric type and sends in Torterra next. It doesn't have a ground type move, but there is no way that I'm winning here. Torterra is very heavy, so Grass Knot has maxed power, making it my best move against it, but I'm still doing less than 1/3. I take a reset, head back to the Pokemon Center, deposit all of my HM users, and then decide to black out against the rival. This will be the fastest way to train in this section of the game, especially because he's sending out 3 Pokemon that I can knock out before making it to the Torterra. The problem is, time after time after time, I make it back to the Torterra, but my health is incredibly low. Unless Grass Knot gets a lucky critical hit here, I don't think I'm gonna win. And even if it gets a critical hit, I might need 2 of them in order to pull it off. This is a moment where Hidden Power Ice would be very helpful. Keep that in mind as we continue with this solo challenge, by the way. There are so many moments where Ice-type coverage is exceptional for electric types. And that's not only the case in Pokemon Platinum, it's really throughout the entire series. When I think about this type interaction, the pairing of electric and ice type, I really think back to my Raikou run that I did in Generation 2, where it got a worse first playthrough time than a Lekid did. And I played those 2 runs in fairly close proximity to each other. I continue to lose here. The blackout counter rises from 10 to 11 to 12 to 13, but all hope is not lost here for Pachirisu. There is another way to get Ice-type coverage for this battle. I can withdraw my HM users, head to Veilstone City, and go to the department store. On the 3rd floor there are 2 TM shops, and the one on top allows me to buy the TM for Natural Gift. This move is like Hidden Power. It has a variable power as well as a variable type, and both of these are determined by the berry your Pokemon is currently holding. Natural Gift deals physical damage. The only downside is that it consumes the berry, so it can only be used a single time in battle. But I think I only need 1 turn of Ice-type damage to knock out the Torterra. I fly back to Solaceon Town, head north, and pick this Asperberry. I think that's how I say it. I've never actually had to use one of these in a solo challenge before, since getting frozen is very rare. And because of that, there's almost always a better held item to be using during a battle than just reset or blackout if you get frozen. But now, with this berry, I have a base 60 power Ice-type move that I can use on the Torterra when I get back to it. Here's the problem though. Staraptor has Intimidate, so when I do use Natural Gift, I only do half damage to the Torterra, and I still lose to Razor Leaf. Heracross crits Pachirisu on my way back to Torterra. In the following fight, I go for Grass Knot first on 2 turns before using Natural Gift to knock it out from just above half health. Turns out the healing that it's doing with Leech Seed is just enough, and it survives my attack with a tiny sliver of health. It brings Pachirisu down to 8 hit points. I'm able to knock it out with Grass Knot, but then Floatzel comes in, and this one has Quick Attack. By this point, I had burnt through my store of Asperberries. There is another way to get an Ice-type Natural Gift, but I didn't decide to go for it. Instead, I just try using Grass Knot to knock out the Torterra. It's doing okay damage now that my level is getting higher. I was continuing to lose here though, so I started to search for a different strategy. Maybe teaching Substitute to Pachirisu is going to be the right option. I give up Natural Gift to have this defensive move. Then I set up on the Staraptor whilst trying to go for Double Team, Thunderbolt to one-shot, sweep through the Rapidash as well as as the Heracross. I was scared of losing my substitute here to a Brick Break, but I don't. Because of that, with the defense in place, I'm able to absorb one of the Razor Leafs, survive the second one with orange health, knock out the Torterra in 3 hits with Grass Knot, and because of the defensive substitute, I now have enough health to survive whatever the Floatzel throws at me. This was an absolutely brutal fight. And now that I've made it through it, I have the honor of fighting Byron next, and all of the trainers inside of his gym. I often joke that the random NPCs in this location are better than the gym leader, but there's the potential for that not to be the case today. First though, I am going to go to the Iron Island. There are 2 items that I can pick up here with Pachirisu, but I'm only going to grab one of them, the magnet. It's after Riley starts following you around, and this means I can't actually dig out of the location. I am not allowed to do that when I have a trainer following me, which I guess makes sense. They don't want you abandoning people inside of the cave. So I have to backtrack so that he stops following me to the entrance of this area and then use dig. The other item I could have picked up here is Iron Tail, but I can only really see that being useful against the rock types on Bertha's team, the Golem as well as the Rhyperior. However, they're both going to get destroyed far more easily when I use Grass Knot. Speaking of Grass Knot, it's going to be my go-to move inside of the gym against Steelix. Black Belt Ricky isn't a problem because of it. Ace Trainer Caesar's Scissor usually causes problems, but today with Thunderbolt I can 2-shot. So far, so good. With Dig, I can 1-shot Worker Gerardo's Magnemites. Grass Knot works well on Black Belt David's Steelix. However, these two bring Pachirisu a little bit closer to the edge of discomfort. Ace Trainer Brianna is annoying as always. These Bronzor, oh my gosh. It would have taken 6 turns to win here, but I hit myself in confusion, extending the duration of the battle. Well, with that out of the way, let's move on to Byron. Magneton is first, 1-shot with Dig. This is simple. Steelix is next, and I'm going to go for Grass Knot here with 2 shots. He set up Sandstorm with his only turn. By the way, this is another oversight in my overlay. The Bastiodon, which is a rock type, will actually get a special defense boost because of this weather condition. This is an effect added to only rock types in Sandstorm starting in Generation 4. It's a 50% boost, and because of it, I wasn't sure what was the best choice here. Is it to go for Thunderbolt, or is it to go for Dig? Bastiodon has higher physical defense, but it does take 4 times damage from Dig. I tried to go for this, but then it sets up Iron Defense, takes very little damage from the ground type move, and I resort to using Thunderbolt. But because of the Sandstorm, it's not taking much. He uses a full restore, and even though I paralyze, it's not enough. Bastiodon sneaks in 1 more Metal Burst, and that's all it needs. I tried playing with Substitute on the Magneton since it likes to set up Metal Sound at the beginning. Since Steelix is setting up Sandstorm, I can make it to the Bastiodon with my defense intact. But Thunderbolt just isn't doing much damage here. Maybe in this case I should have gone for Dig on turn 1. The Bastiodon did not go for Iron Defense. In the end, the Bastiodon is the Pokemon that drops the ball. It just tries to set up tons of Iron Defenses when I'm going for Thunderbolt. It brings itself all the way to +4 before starting to attack, and by this point it's too little too late. So I guess I win against Byron, although the victory didn't feel very good. Saturn is easy. Mars is also easy. Ace Trainer Dalton, on the other hand, this guy's usually difficult. It is so rare for me to make it through this fight without a status condition. I thought I was going to pull it off. I dig the Electabuzz and then use Thunderbolt on the Magmar, but the fire type survives, burns Pachirisu. I tried to open my bag and heal the status condition, but I don't have a healing item, so I have to backtrack to the little shack and rest up in the bed before heading north. I mention this because I really want you to understand all the small ways in which this electric type is losing little bits of time along the way. For Candice, Pachirisu is holding the magnet, increasing the damage of Thunderbolt. I set up Substitute on the Sneasel, then go for Thunderbolt, knocking it out, but I lose my defense in the process. Piloswine is next, but it's heavy enough that Grass Knot is able to 1-shot. Abomasnow is the problem here though. I don't have a good move against it. My effective powers are 50 on Grass Knot, 85 on Thunderbolt, and 40 on Dig. This might be the one Pokemon in the playthrough where Iron Tail would have a unique advantage. Its base power of 100 would do much more than my other moves, especially because right now Pachirisu has more attack than special attack. There are no badge boosts in Generation 4, this is exclusively because of EVs. If at the beginning of the video you were wondering why replays really helped me to make these videos, here's one reason. Previously without replays, if I forgot to record something like the EV distribution of my Pokemon during a certain battle, I wouldn't be able to go back and recover this information because it wasn't recorded in some format. Of course, I could export some kind of data file from the playthrough, recording these metrics along the way just so that I have access to it, and I have been doing that. But now with replays, plays, I can also just go back to this moment and then read the EVs out of RAM for all of you. This is what Pachirisu has right now. 32 HP, 150 attack, 65 defense, 134 speed, 58 special attack, and 4 special defense. So in these playthroughs, you gain almost no special defense EVs. That's something I've never noticed before, but it's kind of a fun fact. At least Pachirisu has naturally high special defense, so I'm not really worried about that stat. It is a little bit unfortunate though that we haven't earned more special attack during this playthrough, because from here on out, I'm mostly gonna be a special attacker. I took a loss to Candice's Abomasnow, not even making it to the Frostlass, so I knew I needed a different strategy. Instead of the Magnet, I'm gonna use the Shell Bell here. I take my time against the Sneasel, ensuring that I have a substitute for the Piloswine. This will help me last a little bit longer against the Abomasnow. And while that is true, I'm not able to one-shot the Piloswine this time. I have to two-hit with Grass Knot. Oh, it turns out the first time around it was a critical hit and the text just scrolled really quickly and I missed it. That's not good. As a result, I lose to the Abomasnow again and again. Blacking out here is not very efficient because getting through the puzzle inside of her gym is very slow every single time I want to battle her. There is another solution here. One, I could go back and pick up Iron Tail, or I could fly to Canalave City, surf south from where the boats depart, and pick up the TM for U-turn, which I haven't used before in a solo challenge like this. Because of that, I forgot that its secondary effect switches your Pokemon out. So I can't actually use it in this way because then I send in an HM user. I was forced to reset because of this. I deposit my HM users, come back to Candice, and now I can use the bug type move with no downside. It does less than half to the Abomasnow. Okay, maybe Iron Tail was the better choice. I lose again as a result. By this point, I was getting a little bit frustrated. I really did not want to have to go and get a different TM after picking up this one TM and realizing that it wasn't the right choice. So I doubled down and I tried to win. I make it to the Frostlass for the first time, but Thunderbolt after a Citrus Berry is not doing enough to two-shot. I fumbled after blacking out and going through the puzzle again, ran into a random trainer inside of the gym, losing even more time. This doesn't give me a level or really anything useful. In retrospect, I should have gone and got Iron Tail at this point. It would have made things so much easier. If I have higher health by the time I make it to the Frostlass, then I can survive multiple hits and finish it. Instead, I was stubborn and I black out not one more, not two more, but 3 more times to Candice. Eventually, I make it to the Frostlass with green health. At level 60, I can't two-shot with Thunderbolt, but after it eats its Citrus Berry, if I have survived, then 2 more hits with Thunderbolt will do the job after she uses a healing item. This is inconsistent though, because the Abomasnow has set up Hail on the field, and because of Frostlass's Snow Cloak, I only have a 75% chance to hit with each use of Thunderbolt. I get lucky though, it hits 5 times in a row and Frostlass goes down. Okay, I'm through this nightmare and it's time to rest up. By the way, you can talk to this bed from 1 tile to the right. It's a small time save, but I'll take whatever I can get. Cyrus is easy, I'm over-leveled by this point. Saturn is also completely trivial. I continue hoarding rare candies on my way through Mount Coronet. At the top of the mountain, I have to take on 2 Bronzor. They're very annoying. I just focus one down, finish the Purugly and Golbat after that, and then focus on the other team. This makes the multi-battle fairly straightforward. In the Distortion world, I can use a Rostberry against Cyrus, but it isn't really necessary here. I can one-shot the Houndoom with Thunderbolt. And from there, he has a bunch of flying-type Pokemon. Gyarados, Crobat, and Honchkrow. All of these are going to be one-shots with Thunderbolt, so the only Pokemon that I'm worried about is the Weavile, and it can't do enough damage. I 3-shot, and that's that. Volkner, the man who doesn't even deserve an intro. Dig is really good here. I can't one-shot the Electivire, but it's just a 2-hit. In Victory Road, there's a bunch of trainers that have really strong teams. I was anticipating problems with some of them. After all, there is a person with Torterra here, so I used rare candies after defeating Ace Trainer Mariah, bringing Pachirisu up to level 80 before continuing. This makes the trainers fairly straightforward to defeat. By the way, I want to make a correction from some of my videos in 2025. I said that I couldn't attack this Dusknoir with ground-type moves, but that isn't the case. It loses the ability Levitate when it turns into Dusclops. I don't know why I've never noticed this before. It makes managing your move pool a little bit easier during this section of the run. Near the end of Victory Road, there are trainers like this, specifically designed to give electric types hard times. Being over-leveled though is enough for Pachirisu. So now it's time to be a special attacker. I teach Charge Beam in the place of U-turn, and then give Pachirisu the Miracle Seed before facing the rival one more time. My fear here is the Torterra. The reason I'm not using Natural natural gift is because the Staraptor once again starts the fight off with Intimidate. So my physical attack is lowered, and I can use Charge Beam for super effective damage to hopefully raise my special attack. I have a 70% chance of pulling this off with every attack, and I get it on turn 1, plus I one-shot the Staraptor. Then using Grass Knot with +1 special attack, I am able to two-shot the Torterra easily. Even though it has Earthquake, it's irrelevant. But Snorlax that follows also has Earthquake. I have to two-shot using Thunderbolt. Grass Knot would have also been a two-shot. Its effective power is just slightly higher here than Thunderbolt's. It didn't matter which move I used. Pachirisu survives the hit from Earthquake, knocks out the Snorlax, and then it's a clean sweep. Thunderbolt for Heracross, Floatzel, as well as Rapidash. I have made it this far, but still, the most difficult trainer is coming up, because Bertha has the chance to be absolutely unbearable in this run. Aaron is the first member of the Elite Four, and he has enough flying types that this fight is very simple. Charge Beam on the Yanmega. I just barely missed the damage range for the Heracross. It's fine, I roll better damage on my second hit, and from there the rest of his team just falls apart. But what about Bertha? Well, Grass Knot does 4 times damage to the Whiscash. This lets me knock it out in a single turn. I wasn't sure about the Hippowdon that follows, but it also goes down. So far, so good. Golem, Rhyperior, they're both taken care of by a special move, Grass Knot, which has ridiculous effective power. But then I arrive at the Gliscor, and I realize I don't have a good move here. Thunderbolt, Charge Beam, and Dig all are ineffective. My only choice is an effective power 70 Grass Knot, which is going to 3-shot. But I don't have enough time because 2 Earthquakes from the Gliscor knock out Pachirisu. In the second battle against her, I realized that Hippowdon sometimes is not knocked out with a single hit. I need to get this damage range, otherwise I will not be successful. Here's the proof that I have my routing software working for Generation 4. Here we can see that a level 83 Pachirisu with Grass Knot only has a 70.7% chance to knock out the Hippowdon in one hit. And these damage ranges show me that the Gliscor is not even going to be a guaranteed 3-hit, it is only going to be a lucky 3-hit. I tried a little bit more, but I don't think waiting for a critical hit on the Gliscor is going to be the best play. I took a blackout here, flew back to Veilstone City, and this is the perfect location. I can buy myself another natural gift TM and head south of the city where I can pick up a Palmeg berry. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, let me know in the comments if I'm not. With it, I now have Natural Gift with a base power of 70. Also, the one blackout gives me level 84 for the Hippowdon, just barely, and now I have a higher chance to knock it out, roughly an 82% chance, so I do succeed in this case. So will Natural Gift one-shot the Gliscor? Well, I wasn't sure, so I went for Grass Knot on turn 1, followed by Natural Gift, knowing that I would survive 1 Earthquake. And this is enough. So Bertha wasn't actually that bad. Flint is next. I could have gone for another Rostberry here in case Flamethrower burned, but I wasn't too scared of that. I'm just going to use Charge Beam, set up my special attack, and then sweep with Thunderbolt. I thought that +1 would be enough, but I'm not able to one-shot the Flareon. So I set up once again when he uses a full restore and then sweep the rest of his team. Okay, Pachirisu is on its way to victory. Lucian is never really that difficult. Mr. Mime is pretty defensive, giving me time to set up with Charge Beam. Even still, with +3 attack, I have to two-shot the Bronzong. But that's the most annoying part of this fight, because the final 3 Pokemon are all one-hits. So Pachirisu, the electric type, has made it to the end of the game. And maybe at the beginning of the run when I said there are essentially 3 ground type specialists it has to go up against, you might have also thought about Cynthia's Garchomp, the dragon ground type that is her ace at the very end of this run. How is Pachirisu going to deal with it? Well, I don't have another Palmeg berry, so I'm gonna have to manage it with Grass Knot. Spiritomb is first, and I am so glad of that because I can set up here with Charge Beam increasing my special attack. Imagine how difficult this would be if trainers could see that I was doing a solo challenge and they got to order their team dynamically. If Garchomp came in first, this would be awful. Well, unless I had Natural Gift with an Ice type move. In that case, I think I might be able to one-shot. Turn 1, I do way too much damage to the Spiritomb because of a critical hit. I increase my special attack, but now I only have 2 turns to set up with Charge Beam. On the second one, it fails because it misses. This is an annoying part about trying to use this move. Luckily on the third turn I do hit, and I raise my special attack to +2. But is this enough for the Garchomp? With a base power 80 Grass Knot and +2, I do not have enough damage. I actually do what looks like less than half. Garchomp goes for Earthquake, and Pachirisu does not survive. I need to gain back health in this fight, so the Shell Bell is going to be the right choice here. If I can avoid the critical hit on Spiritomb, then I should be able to get set up 3 times with Charge Beam. But +3 attack isn't going to be enough for the Garchomp. At least it will single 2-shot, which +2 cannot do consistently. In the second fight, I have worse damage on my first hit. I bring the Garchomp to red health, surviving an Earthquake. Then it goes for Flamethrower. I assume it tested the roll here, saw that Flamethrower with maximum damage would one-shot and then chose it. Pachirisu hangs on with 1 hit point, and while I am able to knock out the Garchomp, Lucario just comes in, goes for extreme speed, and that's it. So I need to survive the Garchomp with enough health to survive at least 1 extreme speed, assuming that Thunderbolt is going to knock out the Fighting Steel type. Breaking things down, I'm going to lose here unless I get set up to +3. This is another case where Hidden Power Ice would make things so much easier. I lose one more time, and by this point in the run, I was starting to consider if I should just be resetting if I don't get to +3 on the Spiritomb. But I think it makes a little bit of sense to continue and just try the Garchomp. After all, if I get that lucky critical hit with Grass Knot, I'm gonna knock it out. And that's exactly what happens here. Garchomp goes down. I have enough health to survive the extreme speed. Thunderbolt easily does enough damage to the Lucario, as well as every other Pokemon that follows. Well, except the Roserade, but by this point I've healed so much with the Shell Bell that it's basically irrelevant. I finished my first playthrough with Pachirisu, getting a time of 2 hours, 36 minutes, and 48 seconds. With 20 resets, 25 blackouts, remember the one error from before, Pachirisu finished the game at level 86 with a game time of 9 hours and 41 minutes. Okay, before I rank my second electric type in the tier list, I want to go over the time ranges that we currently have in Pokemon Platinum. Honchkrow is the best performing Pokemon that I have used. It is an absolute monster in the solo challenge format. It got a time of 2 hours, 2 minutes, and 55 seconds. The worst Pokemon that I have played so far was Luxray, my other electric type. It got a time of 3 hours, 43 minutes, and 22 seconds. However, the metric that I really want to draw your attention to here is game time. With Luxray, it is 9 hours and 29 minutes, which is faster than Pachirisu's 9 hours and 41 minutes. So why is Luxray more than an hour slower than Pachirisu? Well, first of all, when there's any discrepancies between game time and real time, you first want to look at the reset counter. If I had like 50 to 100 resets with Luxray, maybe that would have been the reason. Every time you reset, game time is not incrementing, but the real time is. Luxray had 31 resets and Pachirisu had 20, so there isn't a massive discrepancy here. Also, Luxray had no blackouts, which do bloat game time, and Pachirisu had 25. Some of you will know what the answer is, of course. It's Super Shucky 2. The fact that I can run the game at higher frame rates means that now my real times are just going to be far better than they used to be when I first started this series. I have also changed processors 3 times during the course of this series. Skill upgrades in combination with tech upgrades have made me push times lower and lower with Pokemon Platinum. And I think just because of technology alone, the record set by Honchkrow is going to be blown out of the water this year. By the way, just so you know, this isn't something that's unique to solo challenges. This happens in sports as well. I remember my dad, who worked in sports throughout his entire life, telling me about things like racing bikes and the innovations that were happening there, and it was causing world records to be constantly pushed lower and lower as more and more optimization was found. I say all of this because I think from watching the footage you can say that I didn't play very well with Pachirisu, and it also just had a really bad time in this playthrough because it's an electric type. The trend continues. So it's ranking in the C tier ahead of Purugly and Vespiquen behind Machamp and Roserade doesn't make a lot of contextual sense. I think I can play much better with Machamp, but even then its game time is significantly lower than Pachirisu's. Here's the thing though, we have technology. I can actually switch my tier list so that it ranks these Pokemon by game time instead of real time. And when I do that, Honchkrow is still the best Pokemon. It is an absolute monster. It truly is the big boss of Pokemon Platinum, at least for now. Pachirisu is, on the other hand, the second worst game time that I have ever got. It joins Luxray down near the bottom of the tier list as the only 2 electric types in the list. And it is worth noting that I made a major mistake when doing my Skuntank run. It should be ranked ahead of the electric types. Go and check out that video if you're curious what exactly I did wrong. I learned a lot from that run. With Pachirisu though, there aren't that many big takeaways. I would say that I'm not excited to play more electric types in Pokemon Platinum because of this run, but I think the worst ones are behind me. Electivire has the chance of being quite solid, and Rotom also is extremely unique. I am really looking forward to those 2 later this year. If you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, thank you so much, it means the world to me. Now, if you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in my next video.